So today I'm going to be reading chapter 9 of Molly's story. The next day after school, we did art building. I didn't get to sit on the table this time. That was all right though. I walked through the room and got petted as much as I wanted, and then I settled down by CJ's easel. She was frowning, rubbing paint on a rectangle of canvas with a fierce look of concentration. But she was happy too. I could just tell. I lay down close enough to her that I could reach over and touch her with my nose if I needed to, and I dozed for a while. When I woke up, the students were splashing water in a sink and opening and closing doors. CJ, though, stayed right at her easel, even after the other kids all piled out of the door. Shane went too, his hands shoved into his pockets, his head lowered. He didn't talk to anybody. Cheryl came over to talk to CJ. "How much longer do you think you'll need?" she asked. "Maybe another hour," CJ said. "Thanks for letting me stay late." "Far be it from me to interrupt inspiration," Cheryl said, "but I do have to run down to the office and take care of some paperwork. Are you okay on your own? I'll be back to lock up." "I'm fine," CJ said. "Anyway, I'm not on my own. Molly's with me." Cheryl smiled. "See you in a little while then. I'll just lock the outside door before I go." CJ and I were alone in the art building. I did a quick tour of the room in case any of the students who'd left had dropped something interesting to eat. Then I settled down by CJ's side again. "You're a good girl, Molly," she whispered. "Not too much longer, okay?" Somebody knocked on the door that led outdoors. CJ jumped, and a brush fell on the floor with a splat. I sniffed, but it wasn't edible. "No, Molly, don't lick that," CJ said, snatching it up. She hurried to the door. I kept close by her. CJ stared through the door's window. "Shane?" she asked. The knocking came again. "Come on, CJ, open up," Shane's voice called. CJ twisted a latch that stuck out from the door's surface, and then she tugged at the knob and opened it, but not all the way. "What's going on?" she asked. "Cheryl took my cell phone," Shane said from the other side of the door. "Hey, let me in, CJ. Don't be like that. She said she'd give it back to me at the end of class, but I guess she forgot, and I need it. I have to call my ride, or I'll just be standing out here all night. Come on." CJ pulled the door open farther and took a step back. "I guess. Come in." Shane stepped inside. I stayed near CJ. Her voice was tight, and she hugged her arms across her chest. I could tell she was nervous. This wasn't my house, so I didn't need to protect it from Shane, but I did need to protect my girl. Shane hurried across the room to a big desk where Cheryl often sat or stood when she was talking to the children. He pulled open one drawer, then another, and stuffed something into his pocket. "Got it," he said. "So, okay," CJ said. "Should I tell Cheryl you took your phone back, or—" "Man, CJ, why would you do that?" Shane shook his head and laughed. "I thought you were cool. Just don't say anything, right? She doesn't like me. You'll probably get in trouble for letting me in. Hey, I'll come over another day, watch more TV or something. See you." He hurried out of the door. CJ looked after him for a moment before she shut it and twisted the metal latch again. She went back to her easel, but she wasn't as happy as she'd been before. She only painted a few more minutes before she carried the brushes to the sink and ran water over them. By the time Cheryl came back, she was ready to go. The next day, after breakfast, CJ went out into the yard with me. She was throwing a ball and I was chasing it when Gloria called out of the back door. "CJ, some teacher's here to see you." I snatched up the ball in my mouth and followed CJ inside. Cheryl was standing in the hallway. I bounded up to her, and she rubbed behind my ears, but not for very long. I was disappointed. I thought Cheryl understood about ear rubs. She was frowning, but not in an angry way, more as if she were worried. Ear rubs would probably help with that. "CJ, I need to talk to you about something," she said. CJ looked worried. "Okay, come in." "Your mother should probably be present," Cheryl said, walking into the living room. "Why?" Gloria came in from the kitchen and stood stiffly by the door. "Is there some kind of problem? My daughter's gone to that art class every week. She hasn't missed a day. If the school is saying she hasn't—" "No, it's nothing like that." Cheryl sat down. So did CJ. I brought the ball to my girl and nudged her hand with it, but she didn't throw it. I lay down on the floor by her feet with a sigh. People, not dogs, usually decide when games are over. I wish it could be the other way around. "Did you let someone into the art room last night, CJ?" Cheryl asked. CJ froze. I bounded back up. My girl was afraid. I pressed close to her side. She looked back and forth from Gloria to Cheryl. She opened her mouth and closed it again. "I need you to tell the truth, CJ," Cheryl said. "Please don't try to protect anyone. This is serious." "Protect?" Gloria sat up stiffly in her chair. "Who would she be protecting? What's the point of all these questions?" "Could you just let CJ answer, please, Mrs. Mahoney?" "It's Miss," Gloria said. I put my head in CJ's lap and whined a little. CJ put both hands on my head and smoothed back my ears. She bent low, close to my face. You're a good girl, Molly. It's okay, she said. Then she lifted her head and looked at Cheryl. I let Shane in. He said his phone was in your desk and he needed it to call whoever was giving him a ride. I could sense Cheryl relaxing. Her shoulders went down a little, and her hands settled quietly in her lap. What did Shane do after you let him in? She asked quietly. He just got his phone out of your desk and left again, CJ answered. Cheryl sighed softly. No, I'm afraid he didn't, CJ. He took my phone out of my desk and some money that I'd left there too. Fear spiked inside CJ and her eyes opened wide. He did? But I didn't know. I didn't know he was going to do that. He just said he needed his phone. Cheryl, I really didn't know. Is my daughter being accused of something? Gloria demanded. Cheryl shook her head. Her voice sounded sad. Miss Mahoney, I'm not accusing CJ of anything, but I'm afraid this doesn't look good for her. I'm going to explain to the principal about Shane, but he'll have to report the theft to the police. Hopefully we can get my phone back and the money too. That will help. And I'll tell the principal you told me the truth, CJ. I'm not a thief, CJ whispered. Her eyes filled up with tears. I looked urgently at her hands, wishing I could crawl up onto her lap. I was sure that would make her feel better. But Gloria always said bad dog if I got on the couch while she was in the room. I didn't want to be a bad dog now. I believe you, CJ. I do. Cheryl's voice was warm. Try not to worry. I'm afraid Shane is likely to be expelled. This isn't the first problem he's had at the school, but hopefully that won't happen again. Expelled? CJ gasped. My daughter is certainly not going to be expelled, Gloria said. I'll talk to the principal myself. Clarity June, how could you have behaved like this? Do you realize what people will think? I didn't know he'd take something, CJ said, rubbing her eyes. I licked the salty tears helpfully off her hand. Gloria's voice rose. First you skip school, now this. Really, Clarity? You make things impossible. Maybe you don't care about yourself, but do you realize how embarrassing this all is for me? Cheryl looked from CJ to Gloria, a small, puzzled frown on her face. CJ bent down and hugged me tightly, a little too tightly, actually, but I could sense she needed me, so I didn't try to wiggle away. There's no need to panic, Cheryl said quietly, getting up. I'll tell the principal what CJ said to me and that she's been a good student in my class, not to mention quite a talented artist. CJ looked up at that, and I felt her surprise. The school will be in touch. Don't worry too much, CJ. It will work out, I'm sure. Cheryl left. Usually it was one of my jobs to walk people to the door, but this time it felt more important to stay close to CJ. Really, Clarity June? Gloria said after Cheryl had shut the door behind her. I can't believe you get mixed up with a boy like that. Now everybody at that school will think I'm a terrible mother. CJ didn't do school for a few days, which was nice, but she wasn't as much fun to play with as she usually was. Sometimes she'd throw a ball for me. I'd bring it back and she'd completely forget to throw it again. Or she'd stop in the middle of a belly rub to hug me tightly. I didn't mind the hugs, but I wished the belly rubs could last longer. One of those days when she took me over to Trent's house to play with Rocky. So, what's happening? Trent asked as Rocky and I rolled and wrestled around the yard. Well, Shane's expelled, so there's that, CJ said gloomily. Good, Trent answered. Trent? I mean it, CJ. That guy gives me the creeps. Yeah, okay, me too, CJ sighed, and I'm not expelled, so that's good too. I wasn't too happy about the whole thing. He said I showed poor judgment, and I've got to do something to make up for it. So Cheryl said, how about some community service project? And Gloria agreed, as long as nothing about a theft goes on my permanent record. So now I've got to do 20 hours, and I can't go back to art class until I'm done. Trent shook his head. Bummer. When you didn't do anything wrong, really. No, actually, it's not so bad. Cheryl showed me a list with all those choices. I could either pick up trash along the highway, or pick up trash in the park, or pick up trash at the library, or I can help train dogs, service dogs. I looked up at the word dog, because often that word goes after good, or before treat. Rocky took advantage of the moment to jump on my head. So, where are you going to pick up trash? Trent asked, grinning. CJ gave him a playful punch on the arm. You goof. No praise or treats seemed to be coming. I wiggled out from under Rocky and barked at him so loudly that he took off running, which of course meant I had to chase him. The next morning, CJ got up early. She seemed to be getting ready to do school, which made me sad. But when she went out the front door, she called to me to go with her. I raced after her. She opened the car door for me and leaped into the back seat as quickly as possible in case she changed her mind. She laughed and got into the front seat beside Gloria. I stuck my nose into CJ's ears from behind, and she laughed again. You're in a good mood for a criminal, Gloria said as she started to drive. CJ was quiet for a minute, looking out the window. Then she said softly, Molly makes me happy. Gloria snorted. They didn't talk much after that. That is the end of chapter 9. I hope you enjoyed it.